Watafutwa machozi, kura yeye apite, wapinzani yoyo hatuna namna tumpe, kesho yetu tuenjoy. Kura yeye apite, wapinzani yoyo hatuna namna tumpe, kesho yetu tuenjoy. Wanaiona cheche, ODM ndio chama, Baba ila Odinga ushawaka cheche. Tegemea unapambana, Ikuti Francis Toya. Basa mwamtaka nani? Sauni mwamtaka nani? Na Jomvu mwamtaka nani? Likoni mwamtaka nani? Kataka mtani, hasa tukuwepo tena. Ikiwa huni mtani, hawatakuwepo tena. Abiswa mada na matani, akisema shasema. Tunachelewa kwa nini, pite tena mapema. Agasti 9, ushindi tushampa. Afebe kafe kipa, tushajikita. Wanaiona cheche, ODM ndio chama, Baba ila Odinga ushawaka cheche. Tegemea unapambana, Ikuti Francis Toya. Basa mwamtaka.
So that is very important to understand. It's the good cop and the bad cop. And that is very important to appreciate in terms of the role of the LDO. So in terms of those engagements that were happening in December 20 and of course January 2021, we were able to get the blessing, of course, of the county, including the launch of the co-creation process that happened in February 2021. The Honorable Deputy Governor actually was able to speak at that workshop, and we were able to have a very detailed co-creation process. Again, co-creation meaning it is the stakeholders who are at the table who actually came together, the civil society organization, the private sector who are represented at that meeting to think about this LDO. What would it look like? What its mandate? How would it be structured? How would it work? How would it be different from the other networks and organizations that are in this county? And through that process of thinking through, they agreed that they want to have an organization that has legal standing because Mombasa is predominantly, has a lot of networks that are not registered. And number two, they wanted to have an organization that has its roots in the ward. And number three, they did agree to go out and socialize the mandate of the LDO to the community. And that happened in terms of social mobilization and issue mapping in May of 2021. If you do remember, May of 2021, we were on a lockdown in Mombasa, and it is because there was the second wave of COVID that was actually very serious. So the social mobilization was done in conditions that were unique, and I want to actually give credit to the team that was working because they tried to use all means possible to reach to the community. And they were, if you can see in such places like in Likoni, to have group discussions. They also use online meetings, and they also use social media and, of course, radio to present this idea. We realized that through the social mobilization, the private sector was actually missing in the act. And through that process, of course, through the process of context and system analysis that was done in March, we did realize that Mombasa is a very unique county, has a lot of different businesses, has kind of traditional and historical business, has, of course, tourism, has a lot of small micro enterprises, as you've heard from the two previous presentation. And we felt that we needed to have a private sector roundtable in July 2021. Actually, it happened here. And at that time, that's when we had 3 representatives from the private sector to come and be part of the founders. And then since sometimes in between July and, of course, September, there was a process of developing the trust deed and the recruitment of board of trustees, and we eventually had the registration of the Mombasa Development Trust in November 2021. And for those people who don't know the registration of the trust is actually registered with the Ministry of Land. And some people will ask, what is the trust doing? The Board of Trustees are brought together to hold this organization in trust of the people of Mombasa. It is not owned by any one organization, and the Board of Trustees are supposed to be professional, very independent. And the reason being, this trust will implement program. This trust will resource mobilize. This trust will be able to work with partners like we've just heard of ChemFed, work with the county government. Of course, USAID is an interested party in the longer term, and therefore that is the reason why the Board of Trustees have to be independent, people with no conflict.
Mombasa tuliomba kiongozi, ikuwa ndoto sasa yuko mtetezi. Abdulswamad atapandisha ngazi, vilio vya wanyonge wote watafutwa machozi. Kura yeye apite.
The annual program statement and were pre-selected. Then we had 16 organizations and individuals selected as appointers of this MDT. Then we have registration. They have 8 members of the Board of Trustees. Not all positions are filled. They're still working to fill those positions. And currently, they have a grant of 15 million Kenya shillings to help them in the startup. If you go, can you go next? Now, the immediate priorities as we speak right now, particularly in the implementation of the grant that we've, as USAID and AKF have entrusted to them, is to build the capacity of the organization, particularly in ensuring they have a point of operation and they have a secretariat. And currently, they have identified an office within the school where the AKF offices are. And as you can hear, they're already looking at partnership, that they would want to be housed in a place that is sustainable. So that is one thing. We already are in the process of recruiting their secretariat, starting with a program officer. There is an organogram that provides even for a CEO, and there is also the qualification of that CEO. Number 2, we are supporting them to form the structures as per the trust deed. You had the ChemFed presentation on how the word is important in the development, in any kind of partnership. And this Mombasa Development Trust has identified local council at ward level as the home and the coordination point of whatever is happening on the ground. So it will be very important to support the formation of these structures, because right now they are housed in a trust deed. We need to make sure that they actually are able to put them on the ground, including making sure that they can prepare all the documentation necessary to then support the membership drive that I'm going to be talking about. Then the other most important thing is the policies and procedures. As USAID and AKF, through the work that we've been doing in the background, we have the template of policies and procedures that will guide the operations of this kind of organization. We've already implemented them with Nakuru. We've already implemented them with Makueni, and so it will actually be very easier to domesticate them for Mombasa. Again, working with the stakeholders, the Board of Trustees, the founders, the county government, of course, the CLT, making sure that they're tailor-made for Mombasa. And I want to emphasize something, that we're talking about an organization with legitimacy, capacity, and the legal capacity, technical capacity. And therefore, the policies and procedures then are going to ensure that this organization can be able to hold a candle to itself that is ethical, operating ethically within the policies and procedures, and therefore can also model how the community organizations, the cooperatives, and all the other organizations that are going to be finding home in it, how they need to operate. The other strategic activity that they're going to implement is strategic planning. And I was listening, and I've actually been to one of the ChemFed meetings to actually hear some of the things that are coming from the ground. So it will be very important for very serious and deep engagement in order for them to be able to craft the first of the strategic plan that guides the first few years of operation. And of course, we do appreciate from an organizational development perspective that the first few years of operations are going to be looking internally to build their capacity, but also having very serious stakeholder engagement to build that legitimacy, to ensure that there is partnership, and to actually make sure that there is no sense of competition amongst members of this organization. We all know that the civil society, NGOs, there is a lot of elbowing and putting people out of the table. But this is a place where we can actually make everyone feel at home. Now, we are also working to support the stakeholder engagement, and one of the critical activities we are doing right now is to ensure that the work and the input and the effort we've put right now is known by the incoming government. And that's why I'm thinking today that, yes, potentially I've done a transition activity and I've made some people aware of what we're doing. The transition activity include documenting what we've been doing, and as well as ensuring that there are clear policies and, there are clear procedures on public participation that can actually guide the way Mombasa Development Trust and its stakeholders engage with the county government as per the public participation law. So everything needs to be anchored somewhere. And for that, if you go to the next slide, is to again recognize USAID and AKF for the funding, and also ask you if you have any questions. The story is not mine. I hope I've told it well. But Lucas Fondo and Rehab are here, and Mariam can also support any questions pertaining to the Mombasa Development Trust. For me, as a person, as a mother, as a woman, I do believe that the local development organizations are critical because they'll be home 30 years from now. And 30 years from now, I'll be a woman enjoying my retirement. Maybe I'll have lost a few teeth. And I do believe that if we appreciate the fact that they are place-based and give them all the support they need, they'll become the repository of information. They'll become the place where any incoming government will stop by and understand community needs. And most of all, they'll be the authentic community voices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene. Mheshimiwa, I know Mheshimiwa Abdul Samad, in your manifesto, one of the things that I know you've spoken about passionately is taking the devolution further to the household, between the ward and the household. And one of the things that the Mombasa Development Trust has created a framework for is an enabling environment for that. But most importantly, and again, it's to make the connection. The ward development plans that were put together under KEMSFED are the same ward development plans that unpack what the local ward councils should essentially be running. But unless we have both projects speaking to each other, then what we have is plans that sit in one pocket of a development project, people that sit in another pocket of a development project, and no ability to unpack. And that's why the presentation that we're about to see, which is the main presentation of the Roundtable, is the Green Cities Initiative. This is the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. Mombasa is one of 4 African cities that have been picked alongside Kigali, Nairobi, and Kisumu. But more importantly, and I said this earlier, Mombasa is the only African seaside or oceanside city. And therefore, talking about a green city has been an interesting conversation on this project because we've had to incorporate both the green and the blue, which is what has got us to the point of talking about an emerald city. And without having to take up much more time, I'd like to pass this over to the illustrious Rehab Nderu to take the conversation forward from here. Thank you. Rehab, over to you.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Waziri Tendai. Senator of Mombasa County, Honorable Mohamed Faki, Member of Parliament, Mvita constituency, Honorable Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir, members of our county government, development partners, distinguished guests, all protocols observed, good afternoon. It is with deep gratitude and pleasure that I stand before you to be a part of today's launch of the Utangamano Bay Economy Concept. My name is Rehab Nderu, and I stand before you as a trustee of the Environment Trust of Kenya. This is a trust that was founded back in 1997, and it stands to this day as a true testament of the great strides that can be achieved through a partnership between the national and county government, our development partners, and the community at large. It is evident as we look around in this room that we are connected. We are connected by our shared values, we are connected by our shared aspirations, and most importantly, our shared love for a greater and a greener Mombasa County. In January this year, FAO selected Environment Trust of Kenya and tasked us with adopting the pilot phase of its funded Green Cities initiative. This is an initiative that we later locally dubbed as the Go Green Mombasa initiative. This initiative would see Mombasa incorporate urban forestry and urban farming as a way of life for the citizens of Mombasa County. Whilst the journey was sometimes challenging, sometimes frustrating, sometimes eye-opening, our strength to a unified commitment of transforming Mombasa into a greener city kept us forging ahead. I'd like to thank FAO. Without their support, this pilot project would not be possible. I'd also like to thank the county government of Mombasa for believing and supporting in us to take the first steps in recreating Mombasa as a green city. I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge the entire ETK team whom are here with us, my fellow trustee member, Mzee Hassan, who has been with us since 1997, and friends, partners, and friends that we have met along the way. I call them friends, I do not call them beneficiaries, because as friends, you exchange experiences and information. And that is exactly what we did with a lot of the beneficiaries we met along the way. So we have made long-term friends alongside them. They include head teachers, they include students, they include women, they include young people who belong to Mombasa County, including businessmen. Some of them are around this room, and I'll give them an opportunity to talk. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you Go Green Mombasa.
In 2016, Mombasa found itself in a very unique situation where one of its priorities was to ensure that the citizens took responsibility for the environment. Initiatives came up, cleaning up the city was one, responsibly collecting waste was another, and green schools, and if we leave one neighborhood after another, what we would find in our 35 wards was that Mombasa would begin to bloom once again, and that's where the idea of Mombasa as a green and a blue city began to emerge. The beauty about what has happened in the last 3 years is that not only now did the green city become just about environment, but it also became about food security. So what has happened is the synergy between the ocean and the land, which is what we've conceived as the bay concept, is what gave birth to the Utangamano Bay. The Utangamano Bay is really an interaction and a clever use of the word bay to show just how integrated land and ocean are. But the two can't actually sit separate, but they're actually part of the same ecosystem. That we actually have a kind of green environment on the land because we sit adjacent to the ocean. Mombasa County and the United Nations and the FAA were able to conceptualize the idea of what a green city in Mombasa could look like as part of the Utangamano initiative. ETK, having existed in Mombasa for over 20 years, was picked by FAA to be a service provider alongside government, to be able to engage with civil society, private sector, government, schools, and individuals to showcase what is actually possible when we think of Utangamano and, for that matter, a green and a blue city in Mombasa.
The Green Cities Initiative is an initiative and a flagship for FAO, spearheaded by the Director General. It has an ambitious plan, and the ambition is to reach 1,000 cities globally by 2030. This Green Cities Initiative is grounded around 3 pillars. One is on urban forestry, the second is urban agriculture, and the third is the urban food systems. Pinning all this, we want to ensure that we have a sustainable food system for the cities around the world.
Back in 2016, ETK at the time got an invitation to sit as an advisory consultant in a committee that was known at the time as the Green Urban Services Committee. ETK played the role of coming up with strategy on how to be able to keep Mombasa green in terms of recreational parks, in terms of making sure there are public green spaces, something that I call green living rooms, given that we have seen Mombasa metamorphosed a jungle of concrete. And so our role was to come up with a strategy on how we can still ensure that our children are able to not only celebrate our greenery, but also to enjoy the benefits that a green space can offer them. So our outputs are basically urban forestry, which should be through tree planting activities. We'd ensure that we can actually assist the government in terms of fulfilling its mandate of basically achieving 10% forest cover. The second would be, of course, through urban farming. We have committed ourselves to be able to increase more model farms around Mombasa, which would mean that we'll set up model farms in schools, so we can teach young children through the 4K club how to be able to take care of crops within their school model farms, and also allow the schools themselves to even have an opportunity of school feeding programs through those farms. We also will be setting up again model farms around where young people, so the youth and women, can be able to find opportunities to not only learn and get skills on how to set up their own garden farms, but also to be able to use some of those model farms as an opportunity for them to group together and be able to earn a living through it.
In the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of living. When we went to school, we go and see berry trees, banana trees. You don't see these trees anymore. A lot of construction has happened. Even as lost in Mombasa now. A lot of empty space has been used to build high-rise buildings. A lot of construction has been going on. It's becoming a concrete city almost because of lack of greenery.
Mombasa ilikuwa na miembe mingi sana. Ulafi wetu wa kukata miembe kwa sababu tunataka kutengeneza kabati zuri, kitanda kizuri. Tunaharibu mazingira bila sisi kujifahamu kwa tunaharibu.
Across the region, we want to take about 7%. The total forest area is 848,404, of which about 1,000 hectares are mangroves, which are located in Kwale, Mombasa, Kilifi, Tana Tenda, and Lamu. ya mikopo ndio imetusomeshea mababa zetu, mama zetu, na sisi wengine ndugu zetu wamesomea kupitia hiyo bahari. Na inapoathirika, jamii zetu zinaathirika.
As we live in the trees, the cost of carbon data is more than the terrestrial trees. And also, it's habitat for aquatic animals, such as fish. It is also protecting the coastal shore from erosion. It promotes tourism because there are from people who are just coming all the way from our countries or other people to the mangroves.
So ni muhimu sisi kama jamii za kutoka sehemu mbalimbali, kama kuna sehemu unaona na area ya mikopo, kuwa mmoja kujihusisha katika kuhifadhi, kuilinda na kuipanda.
Leo tuko hapa kwa upanzi wa mikopo. Nimeamua kujitolea kuangalia mazingira, sio kwa upanzi wa mikopo. Tumeweza kupanda mikopo 3,000. Tunarudisha shukrani kubwa sana kwa environment. Now, this initiative of the Green Cities and the 4K Club is brought together. We shall have a very rejuvenated group of children generation that will be looking forward to ensuring that the community has food, the country has food, and they'll be able to take care of the environment. Environmental activists and government officials in planting 300 trees at the iconic Namagina waterfront in Mombasa County. Hussein said our ministry will continue to put in more efforts to increase forest cover in Mombasa with a view of making it more eco-friendly to domestic and international visitors.
Kuona kwamba FAO wako na initiative ambayo wanaita Green Cities Initiative la Gogo Mombasa. Na pia ningependa kuwapongeza kwa kufunga mkono leo ili tuweze kufanya hii na wengine wafuate more kuliko vile iko nyingine.
Systems, apart from the security, one of the things that becomes an even more deliberate conversation is food safety. And when you look at the food systems and you look at value chains and you look at supply chains, one of the things that is very important is for us to know who grows our food, how it's grown, in order for it to impact on our health.
On the survey, we are supposed basically to interact with the traders, retailers, and also some consumers to see where they get their product from, whether it is from within Mombasa County, outside Mombasa County in Coast Region, and also from our country. What came out is that Mombasa is a net consumer. Basically, they're getting everything outside the county.
Viazi wanaendea shambani. Sana sana upande wa Kinango, nilikosa saidi Kinango kuna naenda Molo. Nilikosa Molo, sehemu ya Masaini. Nilikosa Masaini naenda Chimboloa. Chimboloa ukikosa kabisa, kuna lift zali kwa Nandi kule saa nyingine tunaenda kuzifuata.
Tunaenda Ukambani, pande ya Kajiado County na Ukambani, Makueni County. Now, they are going to Tana River.
In Mombasa, they are getting their potatoes from Tanzania. So you realize when you're sourcing a commodity from far, the cost of transport
goes high, and that translates also to the prices of that particular commodity to the final consumers.
Basically, we used to process. Kuna sasa unapita tunalipa, ukifika kila kadogo kama unalipa, ukifika pesa ndio unalipa, and it's very high on our side. Unakuta kama sasa tunalipa 5,000. So unalipa 5,000 na pengine mzigo mwenyewe bei ya juu. Baada ya unafika hapa, hiyo mzigo ni kwa bei ya juu sana, ambao consumer akitoa inakuwa ngumu.
The only thing that was in smaller quantities coming from Mombasa is spices. But top of the major commodities, the vegetables, 40%, the fruit, 20%, you come to cereals, 15%. They are also from outside the country.
With the launch of the corporate lab, we are now supposed to have it implemented at the ground. We decided to have a sort of a demonstration in one of the schools so that we'll have the others copying from whatever they are doing.
We have been learning about gardens, the different types of gardens, using tires, using the hanging gardens, and these are pictures we have just seen in books. But today, for us, it has been discovering day because the learners have literally made the gardens. We have done what we would have done in class, theoretically, but now we have gone ahead and done it practically. And you know, when children do it, then they retain it, unlike when they're just told about it.
I'm happy today that we have learned many things. I didn't know how to plant the seedlings, so now I know. I'm happy for you to come here, and I would like next time you come and teach us more. Leo tumesema kilimo na biashara, hiyo mambo na kupandia miti, kupandia mboga.
Kuwa na chupa kama hivi 100, uko na mche 200. Na sisi nimekupa zote pani kutoka kwa nyumba yako na uko wewe.
Ng'ombe nitaambatoka nasari huku niteka ile nani yale matairi mpaka juu. Niko na ng'ombe na mbuzi nitatambelea ndoo moja mchanga. Hizi changamoto kwao sana ni hali ya maji. Maisha yetu huku tunavyoishi ni duni kidogo. Wamama ama familia nyingi zinakosa hiyo lishe bora. Nimefurahia na ninaona ni jambo vizuri sana. Wao wanaenda kufaidika kwa sababu wakiwa kwa mahali padogo na zile dunia wanaweza kuvuna mboga nyingi sana.
We cannot be able to sustain a program such as this without keeping in mind that there has to be a law or a policy that surrounds it. Because for us to be able to change the way of thinking, the way of life of our Mombasa residents, we have to be able to have laws and policies that will guide us on how to be able to fulfill this. You and I are here today, but 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we won't be the one who will be carrying the mantle. It's actually our young generations who will be doing that, and they need a document or a policy or a bill or a law that would guide them in order to do that.
Part of the success of this project has been the creation of a working concept document, which is now called the Utangamano Bill concept. That policy statement and that concept is unpacking a number of other outputs. It's brought out what we now call the Mombasa Food Security Fund Bill of 2022 that is now going to create that regulatory environment of what will produce the blue and green city of Mombasa. So it's not going to be just the way we had originally envisaged it as a green cities bill. It's actually now going to be a food security bill. so that all those components and all those aspects of regulation and funding of the community brought up in the conversations that we have now been encapsulated under the idea of food security. So when we're talking about enforcement, we're now talking about how do we enforce green spaces with the ultimate outcome of ensuring that we have food security. So that is one of the outputs of this process. The other side of it is essentially a framework of devolving the production of food down to the ward level.
The green city to me is like when a city is green and free of pollution and litter. A place where people could conserve the environment, treat it in a good manner.
People, they should plan. Every year they go to class, they plan. But to the community, they should plan their own. If you have got year 30 years, you plan 30 years, the date of your spouse, you can also plan. Awareness campaign to the general population, and then corporate groups or corporate companies or corporate institutions.
Ndio kitu kinatusaidia kwenye fuo za bahari ni mikopo. Kwa hivyo zile sehemu ambazo mikopo imeathirika, wale wadi zetu ama jamii yetu waweze kupanda mikopo zaidi.
I believe that me come an individual, me as mother, I have that first priority to make sure that I am doing something to help the ecosystem. Like I am not throwing plastic things on the floor wherever I want. I'm not just dumping things wherever I want. If I take that personal responsibility, at least I can tell my friend to also take responsibility. And you know, it becomes a cycle. Like if I do it and I get my friends to do it and they get their friends to do it, you find that like the impact is bigger than when you're expecting the government or CBOs or organizations to come and do it. And I would like all the Mombasa residents to plant more trees so that we have a clean Mombasa. I like everyone in Mombasa to plant trees.
A green planet is a happy planet.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, a green planet is a happy planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rahab. And before we transition to the next phase, I'd like to, ladies and gentlemen, just indulge you for a few minutes. Mheshimiwa Abdul Samad has asked that he would like to speak because he has another engagement that he would like to attend to. So please, if you indulge me, to allow him to speak. Mheshimiwa, karibu.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you guys all? Is my voice low or okay? Good. First and foremost, I want to thank you for the invite and at the same time take the opportunity to apologize that I'll not be able to stay for very long. We have close to about 30 days or so to the elections. So we need to hit the ground. I'll be needed somewhere else, and I need to travel out of Mombasa for a few hours. So that is the reason why I had requested for indulgence on this. I've gone through the proposals and I've seen all the concepts and ideas, and I want to say that based on what it is that we feel should be done in Mombasa, I can comfortably say that the concepts that I've seen are actually in tandem. You know, when we're talking about sending all these ideas and everything else back to the grassroots, our system of governance shall be different from what is currently there, in the sense that we intend to take devolution further downstream. Right now, we have ward administrators, and we now want to take a system of governance that we want to call Serikali Mitaani. That means we now want to look at taking on board village administrators, have city managers who can be able to be part and parcel of implementing the kind of concepts that have been here. So you can be rest assured we will be able to be part and parcel of this beautiful journey together. I was just going through he always does this, but I was just going through the issues that have been put up. And you know, when you look at the SMEs that in turn end up turning and becoming potentially SACCOs, there was the Ushirika Day, which was about 2 days ago, which is the day that recognizes the SACCOs and the cooperatives. And I made a commitment and a point. We intend to equally float out county infrastructure bonds. We intend to also seek ways for purposes of long-term infrastructure development to look at term financing. And one of our first point of entry is to actually engage this kind of SACCOs. So they will be busy, and I know that they have quite a huge chunk of money that is not being reinvested, and it's just lying in commercial banks. We want to now engage them into doing things like this. And one of the other very, very exciting concept that we want to put up, conference tourism has a huge net potential in Mombasa. But unfortunately, it is only 2 facilities right now that are able to offer conference facilities. And even then, the opportunity and the size is not enough. So we are looking at being partners at putting a Mombasa conference center where every single person can come on board. The role of government, I believe strongly, the role of government is not to do business with its citizens. The role of government is to enhance the lives of citizens. However, in the process of doing that, we want to facilitate a Mombasa conference center. And I think the SACCOs, and even including the small SMEs, can be able to own a stake in an institution like that, which has a potential of thousands of local and foreign tourists being able to come to Mombasa just by virtue of that alone. I had tonight talk, and you were referring to the Tononoka Hall being a center for like a financial hub for being able to train every single person and who is going to go through these programs. We actually want to take this a notch further. With the right support from national government, we can actually have a Mombasa Financial Center right here to open the breadth of Mombasa, give Mombasa an economic lease of life, so that we can be able to now look at ways of how we can trade with foreign partners. We can be able to look at engaging all these SMEs with the foreign partners as well through that center. So we're not just looking at something that is going to be a cocoon just for Mombasa alone, but expand these possibilities to go way, way, way higher than that. Regarding the SMEs as well, and I love the presentation from Satmo, one of the things that we have proposed, and these are the kind of legislations that we will actually be putting forward for our MCAs to pass through, is there's a lot of informal skilled labor out there. As a matter of fact, majority of income earners, as high as 80%, is not from the formal sector, it's from the informal sector. A lot of these people are actually not certified. They're out there, they do their job, but they're never certified. So we want to look at a way where these, through SMEs, these kind of informal skilled labor can be subcontracted. And in the process of being subcontracted, we then give them certification so that after their own county government having first given them that opportunity that they can be able, and we expose them that they can be able to do this kind of businesses, we now give them an opportunity that they have, first of all, trading capital with the right partners, being informed on financial literacy, and then thereafter take a step further and push them into the world gently, that they can be able to engage other stakeholders so they don't get something that is going to be an electric shock for them to be from totally informal and they know nothing else, and you take them out to the open market. Let their own county government be the buffer zone for them to be able to see the potentials that they can be able to achieve by formalizing themselves through necessary certification and the rest. Then, of course, the exciting topic is the issue of the special economic zones. I'm glad, and I'm actually not just glad, I call myself blessed. One of the last pieces of legislation that we were able to pass in the National Assembly, I actually seconded something that passed, which will be exciting for those who are going to invest in the special economic zones. And I purposely did this because I know that is what is going to be a game changer in Mombasa, the special economic zones. That we are going to increase nationally, increase the tax bracket and the tax exemptions and incentives for those companies that are going to be investing in the special economic zones. This is something that I think I did in the second last day before Parliament closed. And I hope that the President will be able to sign and assent to it so it now becomes law. My intention is to truly kickstart both, of course, the Mombasa Industrial Park, and look at ways of seeing how we can hasten national government for purposes of Dongo Kundu. I truly believe the special economic zones, with all the opportunities that are there, is going to be a game changer for this county. I'm going to try and share copies of our manifesto, which we're hoping we're going to turn that manifesto into a county integrated development plan, which is what will be able to drive our agenda for the next 5 years. We're actually setting up an ease. This is how vital that we're looking at reviving the economy of Mombasa. We're going to set up an ease of doing business directorate. And that directorate will actually fall directly under the office of the governor. This is how serious we want to take it. So that in the event there are any red tapes, there are loopholes, there whatever it is, we are going to provide you with someone similar to a concierge who's going to take you through all these, whether it is companies that wish to invest in the SEZs, whether it's companies that wish to invest in the blue economy, whether it is any organization that wishes to invest in Mombasa. We're not just going to look at the old ways where we say that, you know, everyone is going to be able to come. No, we're going to now pull for those investors to be able to come in. Tell us what are the problems that you're seeing, whether it is on national government, it is on county government level, and we're going to have a person who's going to take you through all that. The reason, of course, is Mombasa has one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the country. We're about 47% unemployed youth. Through the same Serikali Mitaani system that we want to put in place, we intend to have a job database. our role is, after we've already given you the opportunity to invest and we've eased and we've made life easy for you to be able to make Mombasa as this destination of choice for you, whether you want to invest in the blue economy, if it is in the issue of fisheries, tourism, whether you want to invest in the SEZ for purposes of manufacturing or anything else. Our only request is that employ our own. Through the job database that we will be able to create, employ the youth from Mombasa. They deserve that breathing space as well when it comes to the economic hardships that Mombasa has faced for various reasons, which I wouldn't want to start getting into. But I think it is feasible, it is achievable, and people will start seeing these differences within a very, very short period where we can be able to put things into place. And lastly, the beautiful presentation. Coincidentally, Environment Trust of Kenya, way before anyone thought that I was going to be even a member of Parliament, I used to have engagements with ATK. Mzee used to engage me. I used to run a local print shop. So all your letterheads were being printed by me. So I used to go see Mzee quite frequently to try and, but I'm happy actually that you've grown from where you are to who you are today. And I was looking at the presentations that were here. As a constituency, we tried something. And I believe that as county, that can be done in a more sustainable way. We engaged schools where we did greenhouse. We invested in greenhouses for them. We invested in fish farming for the schools. And I think the limitations of what a member of parliament can be able to do in terms of sustainability, in terms of looking for partners that can be able to assist these. Now, I saw what it is that this can be able to do. You could see the joy when you go and into a greenhouse and you see the tomatoes that have been able to ripen. And I went there every time that we were harvesting the fish. Every single time that I went there, you could see the joy, I actually went into the fish ponds to cast the net, and it's the saying that teach a person how to fish instead of giving them fish actually is something that we need to look at. And we want to partner with every single person. August 9th, I always say this, my role is not to win the election. My job is to actually perform after winning the elections. The role of me winning that seat, I can only vote for myself one vote.
Mombasa tuliomba kiongozi, ikuwa ndoto sasa yuko mtetezi. Abdulswamad atapandisha ngazi, vilio vya wanyonge wote watafutwa machozi. Kura yeye apite, wapinzani yoyo hatuna namna tumpe, kesho yetu tuenjoy. Kura yeye apite, wapinzani yoyo hatuna namna tumpe, kesho yetu tuenjoy.
At Mombasa and preferring us as a destination of choice because of good governance. So I want to thank you once again. And I'll be sharing copies of our manifestos. I'm looking forward to working with all of you in a different capacity, where I'll be wearing a different hat when I come back, and we are going to be engaging each other. So thank you very much and be blessed. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. We're getting to the point where we're going to open up to questions briefly before we go to lunch, but I also want to ask Senator Faki to just
Mombasa tuliomba kiongozi, ikuwa ndoto sasa yuko mtetezi. Abdulswamad atapandisha ngazi, vilio vya wanyonge wote watafutwa machozi. Kura yeye apite, wapinzani yoyo hatuna namna tumpe, kesho yetu tuenjoy. Kura yeye apite, wapinzani yoyo hatuna namna tumpe, kesho yetu tuenjoy. Wanaiona cheche, wanaiona cheche, ODM ndio chama, Baba ila Odinga ushawaka cheche, ushawaka cheche, tegemea unapambana, Deputy Francis Toya. Basta mwamtaka nani? Sauni mwamtaka nani? Na Jomvu mwamtaka nani? Likoni mwamtaka nani?
So we want to build the county attorney's office, strengthen it, and have a department of public litigation. In that particular department, we will need a lot of people who will come. And I'm only giving you an example of one of the departments that will be involved. And all this will be rated based on your performance. So if you've been called on attachment, it's only fair that if you don't perform, we merit the one who performed, isn't it? So there'll be a performance-based arrangement where if they're able to perform, we are going to assist you in opening opportunities by first taking you in, secondly exposing you to others that can be able to absorb you. And this is not just on the level of law. These are the different levels of departments that will be there within the county government. One of the biggest hindrances of the creative economy is these unnecessary charges that we have. So if we want to do movies in Mombasa, right now there's a certain amount of money that people have to pay. So we are saying scrap all that, because in the hope that these people are going to shoot, we not only hinder, but we also encourage by bringing in people who are doing currently the TV series and the movies that are there. We ask them to come on board. In the process of that, it is easier for them to tap in local talent than saying that they have to bring in talent from Nairobi, from Tanzania or elsewhere. As long as that talent is here, it will be more cost effective for them to be able to get that particular talent there. What we're saying is we'll create a certain amount of money. Then we'll allow an annual extravaganza. Do we want to consider existing drug rehabilitation centers to be empowered? In the process of empowering them as well, supply reduction can only be done with the police. Me and you have no power to reduce supply reduction. But demand reduction is where the county government will come in very, very heavily by going out there and speaking, getting peer educators to talk to these children at a very young age, training them, teaching them, rehabilitating those who've already been exposed and were once victim of drug abuse.